About 3,000 years ago, there was a woman in the Bible who was so distressed about not being able to bear children that she went to the altar and she poured her heart out to God in anguish. In 1 Samuel chapter 1, we find the story of Hannah, one of Elkanah's two wives. Now, Elkanah was a just man, and his heart was broken over his wife's misfortune. Over and over again, he tried to console her, but the emptiness in her heart was just so overwhelming. You see, in those days, it was considered to be a curse not to bear children. Hannah's other wife had children, and she used every opportunity she could to rub Hannah's misfortune in her face, which only made her feel even more unworthy of God's blessing. That day she went to the altar and she poured her heart out to God, weeping bitterly. And in her distress she cried out in verse 11, "O Lord Almighty, if you will only look upon your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head." Scripture goes on to say that she continued praying, meaning that she was persistent in her prayers. When Eli the priest noticed her at the altar and her lips were moving, but her prayer was silent, he thought that she'd been drinking. When she explained her situation to him, Eli told her to go in peace and may God grant her request. Sometime later, she became pregnant, and in keeping with her vow to the Lord, when the boy was old enough, she returned to the temple and gave him to Eli to be used in service to God. His name was Samuel. We often find ourselves in times of trouble in which it seems that nothing ever seems to go our way. Sometimes we even find ourselves crying out to God, asking Him if He's even listening. I can't begin to answer the question as to why God is silent sometimes when we need to hear from Him the most. But I can assure us of this. If we are devoted to God, if we have devoted our lives and we're living to please Him, our prayers will be answered. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, next week, or even next year. But the Apostle James promises us that the prayers of a righteous person are powerful and effective, and God will answer our prayers. Our task then is to live the kind of life that honors God and opens the way that enables God to hear our prayers, and then trust that He will in His own perfect time and His own perfect will. It might not always be the answer that we were looking for, but it'll always be the right answer, the answer that is in line with His perfect will. And I, for one, am awfully glad that the God who made me, who knows me, and who loves me is the one answering my prayers. Aren't you? God bless you.